All right, guys, we are live, and I am about to bring out a special guest who really needs no introduction if you are remotely a horror fan. But let's bring out the legendary Charles Band of Full Moon Features.
Oh, thank you. And
Hey, Charles.
I like that intro. I think I counted 4 or 5 clips from some of my movies. So well done. Well,
Yeah, yeah. Thank you, thank you. Those are clips from all favorites of
all
mine
right,
for sure.
good.
And but the biggest thing to talk about here is this whole new line that you
Yeah,
are starting here with the film Quadrant. It's releasing tomorrow, and if I recall correctly from reading on this movie, didn't you try to getting this movie into production a while back, like under Empire?
yeah. I've nurtured my titles and ideas for years, and I lucky enough to have made a large percentage of the movies that I wanted to make. So far so good. But obviously, you can't make every movie. And what I would do in the '80s and '90s, especially, is develop concept posters and titles that I felt would work. And sometimes they weren't made just because the money wasn't there that year or the idea was too ambitious.
Yeah.
So I probably have still several hundred real viable titles and poster ideas. Because again, for me, it doesn't matter what the medium is, you need to start off with a cool title on a cool piece of art so that people who
Oh yeah.
familiar with the project, because our movies generally don't get released theatrically, they go, well, that looks cool, these weird little puppets, it's called Puppet Master, I want to go see that movie. So you kind of want to do that. And sometimes some of the best titles don't even require a log line. And of course, one of my favorites is Evil Bong. You don't even know,
Evil.
you don't need to
Yeah,
know
you don't have to know anything with that going into it.
nothing. So anyway, but back to Quadrant. So in the '80s, I had this idea for this kind of haunted submarine that would go into this sort of different dimension and trap the people inside the sub. And it was called Quadrant. And I did a lot of artwork back then, and sometimes I published pieces of art, or I published several times in the '80s. I put together, like, I think it was 40 or 50 stamps, like a sheet of stamps, like you would get at the post office. And did this as a
Oh, okay.
promotion,
Oh,
and each stamp would be a different title with a different piece of concept art. So the concept art was this for Quadrant was this submarine, and it was underwater and it was Quadrant. So obviously this movie has little to do with a submarine, but sort of those titles that I love, and I've kept these titles for years. And once in a while, a movie will get made using one of my titles. Now you can't copyright a title. It's
yeah,
different if you make a movie. You can go and say, "Hey, you can't make Puppet Master. I've been making those for 34 years." But
yeah.
a title's
But
a
when it's
title. So
not a film yet, yeah.
yeah, but every so often, I'll go, "Oh crap! They made this movie and they used one of my favorite titles that I invented
Oh
back in
yeah.
the '80s and '90s." Anyway, but I was sort of surprised that Quadrant was never used because it actually is a really strong one-word title. And I thought, all right, well,
It
I'm
really is.
creating this new Pulp Noir series, and I had this idea about this virtual sort of helmet people could wear, and they would go and. I mean, I don't want to blow the story because it's pretty cool, and I hope people
No,
see it.
yeah, I agree. I'm big on I go into any movie, I don't watch trailers, I don't like
Right?
spoilers of any kind, I like to just
Yeah.
go in completely blind, not knowing what to expect,
So
and
it's hard to
yeah.
talk about the movie without saying something,
Oh,
but
yeah.
anyway, so it's what's cool about it, and the artwork I think gives you a sense is it is about someone who channels Jack the Ripper, and it's
Mhm.
about a female serial killer. So anyway, Quadrant seemed to make sense because people go into this virtual reality wearing this
Mhm.
helmet, and so I'm happy that I was finally able to use a title that I've been kicking around since the '80s.
Yeah, no, I mean, and one thing that you've always been great with is titles and artwork, as you said, because I remember Blockbuster. As a kid, I started watching horror 6 years old, watched Halloween on Halloween night. I had no idea what I was getting into. I just said, "Hey,
Really?
that's
Wow.
tonight." I'm looking at the TV guide. I said, "Hey, Halloween, that's today." And I throw it, and then I was just blown away and just didn't expect that experience. It's so vivid in my mind seeing it for the first time. And then from then the Friday films, and that leads me to a question that I've always wondered. And when I had Ted on, which is such a great guy. We brought it up briefly, but of course you can answer it better. With the '80s, with the whole slasher craze and stuff, I always found it interesting that you never really did a slasher film.
No, it's
I,
true. I've not followed any trend for better or for worse. I know I could have made
oh,
some money back in the day. I mean, especially during the slasher, or the erotic thrillers was another thing in the '90s where,
mm,
all you needed was a hot chick and a blade and death. And I don't know, it just was not appealing to me, and
yeah,
nor were the slasher movies. So if you look at my body of work, I definitely have some weird ass movies, and I love the ones that no one's ever sort of tried to copy. I mean, one of my favorite movies is a film I made about 20 years ago called Head of the Family.
that's
And
a great movie.
it's such a weird ass movie and so much fun. And I'm dedicated to making the sequel one day. But you
What is it,
can't
Bride, right? Bride ahead
ride
of
it.
the
Yeah, he's
I've been hearing about that for
I know,
years now.
I know. It's a tricky one to make for a lot of reasons.
I
But
can imagine.
I prefer to do things that are really out of the box. And a lot of these movies I've made over a ton of years have really stood the test of time. I mean, Head of the Family, if you don't know when it was made, could have been made last year. There's nothing that ties it really into
It's
any
very
particular
true.
era. It's a really cool character-driven story. It's definitely different. But no, I've never made. I never followed the trend. However, since you mentioned slasher movies, it's probably fair to say that Quadrant is probably my first slasher movie. I guess in a way, it's not
That's
not
yep,
about a crazed slasher who kills 20 victims and in a camp. I mean, it's got a little
yeah.
more depth than that. There's a good sci-fi
Absolutely.
spin, and it does deal with Jack the Ripper. But you could call it a slasher movie. So maybe it's ironic that my 400th movie, which is what Quadrant is actually a slasher movie, kind of.
Yeah, that's what made me bring the question up again actually here to you because I was thanks to you and to everyone at Full Moon for the screener. I got
Oh
to
yeah,
watch the
sure.
movie 2 nights ago and I highly enjoyed it.
Oh,
And
thank.
oh
Yeah,
yeah, and
it's different. I'm dedicated with Pulp Noir to do movies that have that pulp
mm,
film noir vibe. We shot our second film, which will be out in Halloween, called Death Streamer, and I'm equally excited about Death Streamer. Again, it's very opulent story of this decadent vampire who lives in this beautiful home,
mm,
creepy home, but opulent and well appointed. Anyway, he kills his victims in the basement in a kill room, and then he live streams their deaths. And
it's
there's a reason
great
for that.
concept.
I won't spoil. And it really is. It really turned out great. So it's, I think, on a par. And it's a very different movie than Quadrant. But another thing about the Pulp Noir movies is I'm going to be releasing them all. Of course, when they get released, they'll be in color, like you would expect. But I'm also shooting these things with an eye towards a black and white version. So every
That's a
Pulp
great
Noir
idea.
movie will be released about a month later in black and white. So if you like Quadrant, in about a month, wherever you found it, let's say it's on Amazon or Full Moon Features or it's on Tubi, we'll have a black and white version. We're doing that for every Pulp Noir movie.
I think that's a great idea. I mean, because there's certain shots and scenes in the film that has that just noir look to it, and
Yeah,
almost has that the black and white almost look to it. So I'd be very interested to see it in fully in black and white. I think
yeah,
it would work
it'll
very
be
well.
black and white, and we'll do that with every one of these. Another thing we're doing, which is cool that no one's done yet, is okay. So unless you have a big theatrical movie, obviously movies come out first theatrically if they're a huge studio movie. But otherwise, if you're making small or medium-sized films, they premiere on a streaming channel, and you either subscribe to the channel or you can rent it or download to own, and you got to pay the dough, and that's your first window really when you release these movies.
Yeah.
Then usually a few months later, 60, 90 days, sometimes earlier, it comes out on the free channels like Pluto and Tubi. So you
Mm.
can watch these movies on Tubi, but you've got to sit through some commercials. And then once again, the third window usually is a few months after that, it comes out on physical. So you can buy it on Blu-ray and DVD. So what I decided to do is forget all that. It's just, who cares? I think that people watch movies in different venues, and I
Oh
don't
yeah.
think it really crosses over. So I decided to release all the Pulp Noir movies on whatever the day is. So in the case of Quadrant, it's tomorrow, Friday the 23rd, on all formats across all platforms. So tomorrow you can see it on Amazon, you can rent it, you can see it, you can subscribe to our site, you can see it on Tubi for free, you can buy it on Blu-ray, DVD, and we even decided to release it on VHS.
That's great. I know some people, friends of mine that are collectors, big
Just,
collectors of
just for
physical
fun,
media.
This is the
Oh
first time
yeah,
in 20 years that I've released anything on VHS. And what I'm going to do to make it even more sort of fun is anybody who buys the VHS, and we charge what everyone's charging these days for VHS. Those who are selling them is $29.95. I'm going to sign
really.
them all for free. So
Oh,
every VHS will have my signature. It'll be fun, I think, for
yeah,
nostalgia.
I think it's a good way to kick off this new production
Yeah.
line. Now,
So
is it
I'm doing it for every release. So in early
great?
October when we release Death Streamer, same thing. There'll be a date. We have, I think it's October 4th or 5th. You'll be able to find it everywhere: streaming, rental, Tubi for free, and Blu-ray, DVD, and VHS.
That sounds great. And again, I think the VHS release is a great touch. And so, when this, how far ahead do you really plan? Like how? I don't want to say how far into the series already. Like you are like thought wise or writing wise or anything like that
Right.
or idea wise, but I would imagine a decent amount of films you probably
Yeah.
have
Yeah.
planned already.
I got the first 5 Pulp Noir movies sort of figured out. The third one I'm looking forward to because it'll be the first time in many years I'll shoot a movie in Italy. Back in the day, I shot a lot of the Empire movies in Italy.
That's something I
Built
love about films of
built a
yours.
studio in Bucharest, Romania, in the '90s. That's where we shot a lot more movies, including obviously the subspecies films. So we're going to a place outside of Rome and shooting the third Pulp Noir movie, which is called The Lost Girl's Private Diary.
The
And
Lost Girls.
it's a paranormal romance, kind of a gothic paranormal romance. It's similar to a movie I made in the '90s in terms of the vibe. I made a movie starring Sherilyn Fenn, which I
Oh,
was
I
proud
love
of.
Cheryl and Twin
Oh, yeah,
Peaks.
yeah. So the
My
movie was
favorite.
called Meridian, and I
I don't
made
know if I ever
Meridian.
saw it. I don't know if I ever saw it.
Oh my, I got her right after she did Twin Peaks, and of course, she's absolutely beautiful, and
Oh yeah.
yeah, so you got to check. Oh,
Yeah.
you'll love it. It's Sherilyn at her best, sexy. It's sort of a Beauty and the Beast story, and shot that one in Italy.
Yeah, I can't believe that that one flew under my
Yeah,
radar because yeah,
it was
David.
early '90s. Paramount released it, so check out Meridian. So anyway, the third Pulp Noir movie will be this paranormal romance, and yeah, we're working on the script right now.
Oh, great. All right. That's one thing that I've always loved about your films and Full Moon Empire. Just, and I know a lot of it's for budgetary reasons and stuff, but the locations you pick and you're able to shoot at and stuff, they're like a bottleneck movie in a way. A lot of them are in
Right.
one location, but you do it so well in so
Well, we
many
try.
movies.
The trick is to make these movies as credible and as well as possible. My only fault has been, whereas Roger Corman, who was a good friend and I'm really bummed that he's gone, he
Yeah.
was very strict with budget. He had a reputation. You could not get another dime out of him if the budget was whatever it was. He just held the lid on it. And
Yeah.
as a businessman, that was really smart. I was not very good at that. I wanted to always make a better movie. So yeah, you start with a budget, you have a limited amount of money. But if it made sense to spend a few more dollars here and add another day there, I would do that.
Yeah.
And that sometimes over the years got me in trouble because then suddenly there was no money. And I've had ups and some really bad downs. So, but to me, it was all about trying to make within our limitations the best movie possible, and to think out of the box, to do stuff that other people weren't doing. Like I said, I
Oh,
didn't
for
want to
sure.
make another slasher movie. Let me go make some other bizarro film. And some of them were amazing. I mean, some of the movies with Stuart Gordon, like Robot Jocks, and of
Yeah.
course
Some
From
favorites.
Beyond and Castle Freak, and we stretched the envelope a lot, where we could. And I'm kind of doing that again with Pulp Noir. I think Pulp Noir has a lot of possibilities. I'm so far really happy with the
Mhm.
material. There's also an amazing amount of talent out there, fantastic actors who
I
aren't really
thought the
getting.
acting was great in the Quadrant all
And
around.
every one of them. They did a great job, and Shannon Barnes is the lead. I think is going to be a big star.
Yeah,
She's
great
just
performance.
got it. Very very lucky to have her. And I had an equally good group of actors for Death Streamer. So check it out in October. We'll be there in a
Oh,
blink
I'm
of an.
definitely looking forward to that. I forget the actress's name in Quadrant who plays Meg. She reminded me of Jacqueline Lavelle
Yeah,
from
oh,
a
a
few of
little
your
bit.
films. A little bit. Yeah, I was looking at it, I was like, it looks like Jacqueline Lavelle a bit. And that even added more.
She's a fantastic actress, Emma Rangel, and
Okay,
she's
that's
another one who just you part of it is getting lucky. It's true. I do look at thousands of auditions, so it's not. It's a part of the process, and easier today in that in the old days it was all in person auditioning. You pretty much had to be LA to audition for Empire or Full Moon and come into the casting session and wait and do your thing. Today it's all by it's all digital. People, every actor pretty much in their home or apartment have a little setup, and
yeah.
they'll do the lines, and they'll zap in I call it the tape, the video, and that goes to our casting agent, and she kind of prepares it. And in one or two cities, I'm able to watch hundreds of auditions. The other cool thing is, since we shoot some in LA, we shoot in Cleveland, we'll be shooting in Italy. Geographically, it can be people can come from anywhere. So in the case of the last few movies, some actors came from New York. This is when we were shot them in Cleveland. Some actors from LA. We had some amazing people come from Chicago. So in a way, the more choice and more people were able to be part of these films. So that's cool, because look, at the end of the day, it's the script, which is the most important thing. And
Absolutely.
Courtney Joyner, who's written many great scripts for me over the years, he did Quadrant. Courtney's done movies like Lurking Fear and Dr. Mordred and Puppet Master 3, and so he and I go back like a long time. So he wrote a great script for a Quadrant, and he's right now working on the paranormal romance story. So it's
Okay.
going to be
And
cool.
what was the name of that one again? The
The
Diary.
Lost Girl's Private
The
Diary.
Lost Girl's Private Diary. All right. So
I kind of,
people.
you want a title that kind of says it all if you can. I mean, it's
Yeah.
hard to beat Evil Bond, but you still need titles.
Well, is it true? I heard this a long time ago, and friend Matt in the chat just brought up Stuart Gordon. That, and like you said earlier, with the artwork and stuff, and just having an idea and a name, that he walked in and just you had the poster of already for Castle Freak, and just said it has to have a castle and a freak, and then you can do whatever you
Yeah,
want with the rest.
that's it.
I
That
always
works
thought that was
now.
great.
That's the departure point, because again, if you don't have a piece of art and a title that is compelling, you don't have anything. Nothing's worse than I've seen people who make a movie, make a reasonable, good film, entertaining movie, have no idea what to call it, no idea how to sell it,
Yeah.
and that's can be an uphill battle. So to me, the title and the art is the window into what you hope will be a good movie. So yes, Castle Freak was exactly that. The other piece of art and poster that I had that I said, Stuart, we got to make this movie, was a movie called Dolls. And Dolls is one of my favorite puppet and doll movies. When I told
Absolutely.
Stuart I had a studio for some years in Italy. And I said, Stuart, this is after Reanimated, we were preparing From Beyond. And I said, Stuart, when you get to Italy, there's some cool sets built already in the studio. We do a quickie before we shoot From Beyond. And he goes, well, maybe. I said, well, you're going to be over there and your family, and From Beyond's complicated. Why don't we do a real quickie, cool movie? And I pulled out the poster, and it was the poster of Dolls, which pretty
Such a
much
great
survived as the poster of Dolls to the bitter end. Most of these concept art posters do. I mean, you have to update them with the real person. Usually there's
Yeah.
but we've maintained. A lot of the art and a lot of the titles have been around since the very concept art that I prepared. So it's cool when that happens. Another thing that's neat is a lot of these titles and concept art have also translated well, or traveled well, I should say, to foreign countries. So when you go to Italy or Germany or Japan, a lot of my movies are called what they're called here. Puppet Masters
Yeah, you
called
don't have the different name, the
Dolls
many
is
different
called
names of
Dolls.
foreign films.
Right. So my titles, our titles seem to survive even in countries where, you know, you would normally have a translation.
Yeah, and one thing I always thought amazing about where you shoot and stuff, because I always feel I'm a huge Italian horror fan. One, I'm a huge Asian horror fan, Indonesian stuff
Right.
like that. I feel like when you shoot in countries like that, they're so gorgeous that it immediately ups the production and the look of the film and just how the
Yeah,
film looks, and it just looks like a bigger budgeted film
it's true. If
shooting
you
in
can,
locations.
yeah. Well, that's why we've made most of our movies and a lot of them in Italy. And then for 9 years, I made movies at a studio I built outside of Bucharest in Romania. I mean, that was about 140 movies were made there. So
Wow.
it does all that. But, you know, there's also incredible locations here. We found Cleveland to be
Yeah.
amazing. People don't realize that Cleveland used to be the richest city in America at the turn of the last century. That's where all the industry was, the wealthiest Americans, incredible buildings and houses. And of course, everything changed and the world changed. And then, you know, business left and things happened elsewhere. But what was left in Cleveland is a beautiful city, a lot of really cool, big, weirdo buildings you can shoot in,
Yeah.
mansions that rival Beverly Hills. So, and people are great. You know, they welcome filmmakers, you know, so
Yeah.
we've had a good time. I think we've made 14 movies in the last few years in Cleveland, including, you know, Puppet Master, what was it called? Retro. I'm forgetting my own title.
I
Dr.
mean, yeah,
Death, Puppet
400 films.
Baby Oopsie, which is a spinoff of the, you know, the
I
demonic
enjoy
toy.
those.
Yeah, so you know we've done well in Cleveland, and I'm going to be back there soon on another show. And Quadrant was shot in Cleveland, and Death
Okay.
Streamer, which you'll see in October, was also shot in Cleveland.
Nice, nice. We got a question here in the chat here. Excited to see Quadrant. Will all the Deadly 10 films ever be released?
Well, we did 5 or 6 of them, and what killed us was COVID. We were about to shoot Subspecies in Serbia. We were prepping. Ted already had been there, and I had a couple of the other movies in pre-production, and then just everything shut down for a good few years. So
Yeah.
some of the financing we were involved with, some of the people we were involved with, it all kind of ended. Now I'd like to, if time and money permits, make the last 3 or 4 Pulp Noir movies. I mean, I'm sorry, Deadly 10 movies. The gimmicks, so to speak, about Deadly. By the way, I can do one more question because I have another interview.
Yeah, yeah. I was just gonna say,
But
you tell me
yeah, yeah.
we're all. I gotta go at any point.
The what was cool about the Deadly 10, aside from I think the movies, is we created this website and people could go on the site. It was free, and what we did was we live streamed basically the entire production. So now we couldn't quite afford to do that today because there were reasons why we were able to do it back then. But I'm not talking about somebody on set for 5 minutes. We would shoot a movie and we would have our crew that would normal crew to shoot a movie. Then we'd have a second crew with 2 or 3 cameras that from the minute we started, let's say at 8 in the morning till we wrapped at 6 at night or whatever it was, would live stream the entire day, like in real time. And so you could go on Deadly 10 and look at whatever the movie was that we were shooting.
Yeah.
And sometimes there'd be 3 cameras. One camera would be, let's say, hanging out with the actors. The other camera would be on set to see how. Now, sometimes it's boring. I mean, you know, sometimes it takes a half an hour to set up a shot and there's not that much going
Yeah.
on. But if you've never been on a movie set, it's also sort of fascinating. So for the 4 or 5 movies we did shoot for the Deadly 10, people were able to be on set with us for, you know, hundreds of hours watching these movies getting made.
That's a great, I mean, addition. And I want to plug your Patreon and stuff. I have all
Thank you.
links. People who watch, I have the Full Moon Patreon links in the description. Full Moon's website, all that. If you want to follow,
Yeah, I mean,
Instagram,
you can
all
go to
in
Full
there.
Moon Features and watch, you know, I mean, we have a great streaming site. We not only have hundreds of my movies, but we have a fantastic amount of Italian horror movies and you
I
know,
saw a post of Wax Mask.
Euro trash, and we just put up Demons. And you know,
Oh,
the
great.
bottom line is it's a great streaming site. We also have a real robust, insane store now, 18 years online, where you can get 1-to-1 scale replicas and all the stuff you would imagine and all the merch you could dream of. A lot of the merch tied to the puppet and doll movies. And then, yeah, we have a great Patreon program for people who want to be involved in the process of these Pulp Noir movies. There's a couple crazy tiers. One of them is my favorite. It's a little pricey. It's called the Head of the Family tier. And if you join that,
Again, great name.
you get all sorts of crazy stuff, but you also get an executive producer credit on every one of the
Oh,
Pulp
wow.
Noir movies on screen and IMDb. So there's a lot going on. Thanks for putting up the.
Oh
You know,
yeah, so on the
the websites.
description, and definitely, guys who are watching now and those who watch in the future, absolutely check it out. Because I
Yeah,
mean,
and check out Quadrant. I mean, I'm proud of the movie.
yeah, it definitely.
There's a
I
lot
enjoyed
of
it.
blood, there's a lot of stabbing, and there's a lot of
Yep.
boobies. But you can't.
Yes, there are. Loved it. Loved it. Well, everything about it. I actually think it was one of the best directed films by you that I've seen in a while. Like I
Thank
thought it
you.
was
Well,
very
there's
well
more coming.
directed.
I'm doing every one of them. Wait for Death Streamer. That's also, I
I'm
think,
so
up
excited for that.
on
But
every.
again, I want to be respectful of your time and don't want to take any more up. Thank you so much. Just
You
for I
got
know
it.
how
You got
busy
it.
you are.
And let's
So
talk again in October, maybe during the Death Streamer release. That'll be fun.
oh yeah, for sure. Just hang out for 1 second when I'm ending the live on.
Okay, you
I'll just
got it.
thank you again. But everybody who watches, thanks for watching, and in the future, thanks for watching. Also, this has been
Thanks.
Charles Band. Take care, guys.
Bye. Thanks.